Thank you. I was debating how far I was going to walk because for those who know me, I'm very klutzy. And I was like, if I make the walk as short as possible, then the likelihood that I'm going to trip over something is smaller. And I made it. So that's number one, I did not trip. There's been a lot of information at this conference in the past few days, 3 days if you went to the workshops. And I'm guessing that there's some really great ideas. There's some, things you're going to bring back to your teams. And you're like, wow, people have told me exactly how to do this, but now I don't remember. Yeah, it's very overwhelming. What I want to do today is talk to you about a very practical, tactical framework that we developed at Trust Insights that you can use to go in depth with your teams. You can use to just as a very light checklist that is really going to help you focus your AI efforts. The challenge with AI efforts is getting people on board. People are the challenge. People are complicated, and they're the ones who are the holdouts. It's not that there's a lack of tools. It's not that there's a lack of motivation. It's that it's the lack of a collective, everybody wants to do this. So recently, in our Slack community, Analytics for Marketers, somebody shared this article called Fire, Ready, Aim. And the author, while he was talking about UX specifically, when I read it, I really read it in the broad sense of marketing technology in general. So what he says is the frantic race to push out half-baked AI features into enterprise products is a cynical subversion of foundational UX principles. Their customers may never forgive them. Since generative AI became publicly available a couple of years ago, it's dominated the conversation. Everybody is trying to race to the top of the mountain to be the first to have the best-in-class product, the turnkey solution, whatever it is. And as marketers, we're sitting there going, but what do we do? There's so many options. The author goes on to say, and this is what really stuck with me, it's also a good bet that the haste to react to still unproven market hype and satisfy impatient investors and restless creative directors is likely to degrade the overall user experience in the short term, making the thoughtful adoption of AI in the general population in the long term less likely instead of more. And that's what we're talking about today, is the thoughtful adoption of AI, because in order to do thoughtful adoption, your people have to be on board. So when we're talking about all of these tools, and we're talking about people, doing these experiments and proof of concepts, which is super important, what are we talking about? We're talking about this. If you're not familiar, but I'm guessing most of you are, this is the marketing technology landscape. It comes out once a year. This is from May 2024. So it's now September. You can guarantee that this number has increased already by a lot. In 2023, there was only, big air quotes, only 11,000 tools. In 2024, there's 14,000 tools. 77% of those tools are Gen AI based. How do you pick? How do you know? There's a lot of options. Of those 77% new tools, of those 3,000 tools, majority are content marketing. The way in which people are using generative AI now primarily is to generate new things. It's the least good use case of generative AI, but it is the most prominent use case of generative AI. And therefore, the companies that are building content marketing tools have said, great, we can write for you. I'm not knocking these companies. I think they're fantastic. I use generative AI to help me write. But I have my own personal set of tools that I've used. For someone who is trying to figure out what this looks like for their company, what this looks like for their team, even this is a lot to pick from. 77% of employees using AI say it has added to their workload and created challenges in achieving the expected productivity gains. We thought it was going to go the other direction. It can go the other direction, but as of today, it's adding more to the plate. I've talked to a lot of people who, when they're working with their teams, they're like, we really want to do this, but they can't figure out where it fits into their process, or they're dragging their feet because they're worried about XYZ thing. And so therefore, they fall into that 77% of it adding more versus the other direction where we want it to be 77% are saying, we have found so much time. If you caught the session this morning where Anne-Marie from Salesforce was saying, people are getting back 8 hours a week. That's fantastic. They're getting back this, they're getting that. That's where we want to get to, but you have to get the people on board to do that. Less than half of organizations have a plan for education and training. This is the problem. Aside from having too many tools to choose from, aside from not getting people on board, aside from worrying about insecurities, aside from worrying about resources, aside from worrying about budgets, aside from worrying about all the tools, education and training. I can't think of a single thing that I've ever been able to just pick up and start doing and that I'm good at. When I think about this, I think about learning to drive. I had to go to classes, I had to do my driving hours. I couldn't just get behind, I could have just gotten behind the wheel and started driving. I know that happens a lot, but I needed education and training to do it correctly. And then there's even still, once you have your license, once they say you're allowed to drive, you can still get in an accident. There's a lot of factors involved. And so I think about it in terms of that. And so when I think about when we're managing the people who manage AI, education has to come first. So let's just do a digital transformation. This might be a controversial thing. I personally detest the term digital transformation, and I will tell you why. I've been through them. I've been at companies that have done digital transformations. Let's just transform digitally. Let's just do it. I used to work at a company that basically we had our PMO, which I was a part of. We had our development team, creative team, data team, sales team, marketing team, all the teams. The way in which the company was funded, a lot primarily was on grants. And if you've ever worked with grants, you know that you have to track every single dollar down to the minute so that you can report back to the funding agency and say, this is how we spent the money. And you don't want to have any money left over, but you also don't want to go over. It's a very tricky balance, especially when you're dealing with so many different teams. I probably raised my hand because this is who I am, but I somehow got saddled with rolling out Microsoft Project 2010 and SharePoint. This was the decision they made. They said, this is the digital product that we're going to use for everybody, including development teams, creative teams. The problem I have with a digital transformation is that it puts technology square in the forefront. People and process be damned. In this situation, they said Microsoft Project, which is a waterfall project, a waterfall piece of software. If you're unfamiliar, waterfall is a project management technique where it's everything, one has to happen in completion before you can move on to the next thing. Our development team was agile, so everything was iterative, the exact opposite of waterfall. And the way in which they were developing and tracking their hours was very different from what the technology allowed. So this was a constant struggle. This was an everyday battle, lots of meeting, lots of fighting, lots of definitions of what working time versus what non-working time meant. Had the leadership team actually stopped and talked to the people who actually needed to include these things, their time, their resources, their budgeting, they would have figured out Microsoft Project is probably the wrong tool. But because they went the route of a digital transformation, put the technology square in the forefront, they said, this is the tech that we are locked into. We have to make it work now. I'm seeing this happen a lot with companies that are trying to integrate AI into their ecosystem, with their teams. They're saying, we've picked the tool. Now let's figure out people and process. And it is the exact opposite backwards way of doing things. I'm also a realist. I know that this happens. I know that sometimes we have legacy systems, whatever it is. But when you go into it with the mindset of a digital transformation, it's not going to work. I guarantee it. I would put money on it. Come find me. When we lock ourselves into the technology, the people are no longer calling the shots. And this is why people become unmotivated to do the thing. They're like, well, I didn't ask for this. This isn't the tool that I needed. You never even considered what I really need. But now, thinking back to that 77% number of people who are one more thing on their plate, this is how it happens. We say, this is a tool. I found the shiny object. I found the thing that's going to revolutionize the company. Everybody's going to start using ChatGPT to write. And people are like, but that's not how that works. The success of AI integration hinges on people actually using AI. So I know I'm painting a very dark picture of we all hate this, we don't want to use it. That's not the case. I want people using generative AI. I use generative AI, and I'm the one in my company who has been dragging my feet the hardest. And now I've turned the corner, and I'm like, no, I see the potential, but I first had to outline what my needs were. And we can see the potential. This is from the 2024 State of Marketing Report done by our friends here who are putting on the MAICON show, the Marketing AI Institute. We can see the potential. We want it to work for us. We want to reduce time spent on repetitive data-driven tasks. We want to get more actionable insights from marketing data. We want to accelerate revenue. We want to do all the things. We want to do it. We want to get there. I can't think of a single person that I've ever talked to who's really happy doing the same, pulling the data, putting it into PowerPoint, shipping it off to the client, nobody ever reads it. Week after week, day after day, month after month. I don't know a single person who's happy doing that. I love monotonous tasks as much as the next person, but that's where I draw the line. That one I just can't do. We want to do it. We want to get there. This is my buddy Dexter. Dexter is an adoptable, actually no. Dexter was an adoptable dog at the Bay Path Humane Society. I'm guessing that since I practiced this talk so much, I put it out into the universe, and Dexter got adopted actually just this past Sunday. I have the privilege of volunteering with the Bay Path Humane Society weekly, sometimes more when time allows. And my job when I get there is to hang out and play with dogs like Dexter, get them ready for adoption. Has nothing to do with AI, except for when I was talking with the executive director during my intake interview, and she was like, oh, you work in marketing and AI. Can we use AI for everything? This is a shelter based on donations. This is how they operate. They're constantly underwater trying to figure out how can we do better, faster, more with less. They are the perfect client for an AI disruption. But the questions that she was asking were the same typical questions that a lot of leaders ask of, can we use AI for everything? How can we make it faster? How can we make it more efficient? And in that conversation, I was running through the framework that I'm about to introduce to you, where I was trying to really focus her down and say, all right, I hear what you're saying. A lot of what you're describing, you wouldn't necessarily use AI for, which was surprising and a little bit disappointing to her because she's very excited about it. She wants to build large language models. She wants to do all the things. So she wanted to know, can we use AI for everything? So the question is, why is adoption so hard? Dexter got adopted, so this joke no longer works. I didn't have time to switch out to a different adoptable dog. But okay, really, why is AI adoption so hard? This is a great question. It's a question we've been asking ourselves for the past at least 3 days here, and then for the past 2 years in our own organizations. Why is adoption so hard? Because we're focused on the wrong things. We're focused on the technology first. We're focused on our goals of being more efficient. We're focused on disrupting things. We're focused on just anything except the people. And this is what I want to bring to you today, is putting the people first, taking back the narrative of a digital transformation being the way. It's not. You can fight me on this. That's fine. If you want to call it a digital transformation, it's fine. I don't agree with that because it puts the technology first. AI integration is a culture shift. A culture shift is change management. Change management is a process that includes people, and that takes a long time. And I know it's not what you want to hear. You want to move faster. You want to move yesterday. You've already chosen the tools. You have the ideas. You have the vision. If you want to bring AI into your organization as a fully baked part of your strategy, which I highly encourage, I think it's going to make a huge difference. Know that AI integration is a culture shift. And if you have ever worked at a company who, 1, doesn't know what their culture is, 2, has a bad and toxic culture, it's not going to work because they're just adding more tools on top of an existing problem. If you know what your culture is, if your people are happy and motivated, you're going to have a better time integrating AI because you're giving them the tools. You're giving them this gift of finding more efficiencies, of doing really cool creative things. But it has to start with your culture. It has to start top down, bottom up. Every single person has to be on board with what it is that you're doing. I anonymized it. Not actually a client of mine, so I'm not really worried about it. If you're affiliated with this no name, nobody's ever heard of this big consumer brand. Their original mission statement when they were founded back in the 70s, I believe, by John Mackey, was to have the stores within each neighborhood fit into part of that culture, fit into those neighborhoods, and be unique to those neighborhoods. About 6.5 or 7 years ago, they were bought out by an even larger no-name company that rhymes with Schmamazon. And what they did was they started saying, okay, we don't care about the uniqueness. We don't care about your original mission. We have revenue numbers to make. We have efficiencies to find. We have all of these things that have nothing to do with the teams on the ground because our numbers are up here and our people are way down here. I happen to know very well someone who works in one of these stores who has been working in these stores for over 20 years. This person, who is on the ground day to day, is in the manager level. So he told me one day, hey, anonymous person, AKA my husband, who works there was like, so today, guess what they did? They introduced AI scheduling. We don't need AI scheduling. And I was like, oh, tell me more about it. I'm naturally curious. I'm like, what does this look like? So now they have this, they take everybody's availability, unchangeable, like you either say you are or you aren't, and your hours are basically going to go in based on that information. They put the information into the AI system, and then it gives you a schedule. 10 times out of 10, the schedule is incorrect, not up to date, and they have to print it out. They write on it with a marker or a pen, and then they put it up on a cork board, and everybody gets their schedule that way. It is such a poor rollout of AI integration. They also have AI scheduling tools or AI ordering tools, basically everything they don't need. Had they talked to the people on the ground, they would have found out what they actually need: more team members, people to actually do the work. They need to not have laid off the entire maintenance staff. So when things like the cryovac machine, which is the machine that you put a product into, it vacuums out all the air and it's covered in plastic and it lasts a lot longer, is not broken. So when there's no maintenance team and there's no one to fix the cryovac machine, guess who's doing these things by hand manually? The people who are understaffed by about 60% chronically all the time. But at no point did this big nameless anonymous company say, hey, what do you guys actually need? So this is a masterclass in how not to roll out AI into your company, especially the bigger the company, the harder it becomes. So Whole Foods didn't give a clear purpose. Why are we giving this tool to you? Why do we want you to move into AI scheduling? You can make some assumptions based on what their overall business goals are: efficiencies, revenue, et cetera, forgetting less about the people and more about just like mass volume and production. They didn't ask their teams what they actually needed. Had they done that, they may have found out, hey, we need access to order gloves that sometimes don't have latex in them because we have people on our team who actually have a latex allergy, and they then have to, out of their own pocket money, buy gloves that they're not allergic to so that they can conform to your sanitary standards in the workplace. Those are things that the people needed. They don't have the resources, the teams don't have the resources to train the AI systems. Because every single team in the store is understaffed, they don't have someone to, once the schedule is printed out, go back into the system, make the changes, give the data, an upgrade, a refresh, and say this is what it should be, so that next time the system is learning. Because AI is only as good as the data that you give it. The trainings themselves consist of 45-minute all-hands calls. If you're still using those conference calling phones that are like the triangles with no video, people call in and it beeps, can you hear me, can you mute if you're not talking? That takes up a good 20 minutes of the call. That leaves 25 minutes for the rest of the call and the training with no visuals, and then they say good luck, because there's no point of contact for questions, because the company has separated corporate from the day-to-day so much, there's so many layers, that if they have questions, if they said, we have a dedicated resource who can actually train this AI system, there's nobody to go back to find out how that actually works. If you don't do these things, you're already setting yourself up for success. So basically just don't do any of these. New technology doesn't solve old problems. And I think that's one of the misconceptions about generative AI. It feels like magic. I think we were watching the CEO of Descript yesterday as he was talking, and he was talking about the logo and how AI always has these like stars and magic around it. And I think that it's sort of conditioning us to think that AI is magic as well. But new tech doesn't solve old problems. We say this all the time. I always say this to my co-founder, Chris, when we're talking about, well, he found this new tool, we found this, we found that. I'm like, but what's the problem we're trying to solve? And it's an old problem that isn't going to be solved with new technology. As I mentioned, a lot of the barriers to AI adoption, education and training. It's not a one and done. It's not a set it and forget it. It is not a Ron Popeil machine, unfortunately. You can't just put the roast in, walk away, and then magically it's done. It is a constant learning. AI is changing so quickly, there needs to be a dedicated education and training program. There needs to be awareness and understanding of why you're doing it in the first place. If you're introducing an AI scheduling system to me and I didn't ask for it, don't expect me to use it. I need to know why. I'm one of those people who goes into the meeting and immediately starts asking why and annoying everybody saying, why are we doing this? I'm like a toddler. I need to know why. If you can't answer those why questions, you're going to run into a lot of these issues. A lack of strategy, a lack of talent with the right skill sets. Think about the teams that you're introducing AI to. A lack of resources. A fear of mistrust of AI. We've talked with a lot of people who have said, but what about my creative process? If AI takes that, I'm out of a job. You need to be able to address these things. And I'm saying you, the general you, but you and your leadership. Go back to your leadership team and say, these are the problems. This is why we're not doing it. These are human problems. These are not technology problems. These are problems that live with people that need to be addressed by people, by the people, for the people. I'm sorry. These are human problems. These are things that we, as leaders, need to address with our teams in order for AI to be adopted. You might recognize these guys. If you don't, go outside, they're out there. Paul and Mike do their weekly artificial intelligence show. I don't know if Paul could hear me like clapping and cheering from Massachusetts when I heard this episode come out, but he was talking about AI adoption and the lack of it, and what he was saying was exactly what I've been also saying all along, is there's no change management plans. Change management plans involve people and culture shifts. There's no AI roadmaps. Easier said than done, because everybody has a different agenda. There's no education and training. It's not a one and done. It's just isolated pilot projects and experiments, which I do think is important, because you have to test these things. You have to bring the ideas to the table. You have to bring solutions. But then that's just what it is. Then you need to figure out, where does everybody else fit in? So now that I have spent the first 20 minutes ruining your day, I want to spend the next 20 minutes telling you how to fix this problem. Now that we know what the problem is, now I have a solution for you. I wouldn't just leave you hanging and be like, okay, good luck, it's terrible. I recommend, personally, and I'm 100% biased, the Trust Insights 5P framework. Katie, you lied to me. It's just a digital transformation. It's not. This 5P framework is built by burning down digital transformation, stomping on the ashes, and letting the 5 Ps rise like a phoenix. Too dramatic? Okay. The 5 Ps are purpose, people, process, platform, and performance, because marketers love alliteration, and if you get too close to someone, you can do a little bit of the spittle thing, get them to back up. Purpose and performance are your bookends. My main criticism with a lot of digital transformations is that there was not a clear purpose. You always have to start with that. That is non-negotiable. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the question you're trying to answer? And then you have to have a clear performance plan. Why do it if you can't measure it? Again, a lot of the digital transformations that I sat through were like, here's a piece of technology, roll it out, good luck. That's not a goal, that's not a purpose, that's not a measurement plan. Now in the middle, you have people, process, and platform. In a perfect world, you could start with the people. You could say, this is what the people need, these are the processes, and choose your technology last. In a realistic world, we've already chosen the technology, but with this framework, these, again, non-negotiables. You have to know what the people need so that you can make adjustments before you're all in. You have to know the processes. So what does this look like in everyday? Purpose. What is the problem we are trying to solve? It sounds really easy, duh, of course, we have to define that. I want to replace my teams with AI. That's not a problem you need to solve. That's just a personal desire that's a little bit twisted. You need to dig deeper. I don't want to fall behind. Again, not a problem, just an insecurity. Everyone else is doing it. Not a problem you're trying to solve. Again, just sort of well, I see the guy down the street doing it, so I should probably do it. You haven't really addressed the problem within your company first. And then my personal favorite, actually spoken out loud on a call, I want to win an innovation award. In this particular instance, the client that we were talking to, their marketing was so misaligned with their audience. Their marketing skewed to an older audience. Their audience skewed younger, and they weren't addressing the needs. And so there was this wide gap. So rather than doing the work to do more market research, adjust the marketing, re-roll out the campaigns, his solution, I want to win an innovation award. And I want to do that with AI. Back to that 77% of people, one more thing to do. There was a collective groan across the enterprise company of, you want me to what now? This is not a problem that needs to be solved. If you're starting your problem statement with, I want to, with AI, you're back in that digital transformation space. You're putting the tech first and not really addressing what needs to be addressed. Now, don't get me wrong. You can be using AI the entire time to figure out what these problems are. But the true integration into your organization needs to be more thoughtful than that. You need to be thinking about the team as a whole. So we can do better. We can absolutely do better. We don't need to lead with, I want to win an innovation award, or I want to make more money, so I'm going to lay off the whole team and AI can just do it. Don't do that. Think about your company. Every company, regardless of who you are, has relatively the same structure, give or take a little bit of language here. So think about your company. You have your sales, your marketing, your operations, your finance. You might have more, you might have less. It might be one person, it might be multiple. Within each of these disciplines is where you're going to find your true problem statements that need to be solved that you can then bring AI into. So what does this look like? For sales, I need to boost revenue by X. I need to increase net margin from 17 to 21%. Maybe you're trying to get the company ready for sale. I need 4 more clients on my roster at X per month. I need to increase a 3% closing rate. Those are great problems to solve, and AI is likely a solution in a lot of these places, but you're not leading with AI so that you can actually get to the root problem that you're solving. With marketing, I need to know if my audience is the right one. Don't solve it with an innovation award, they won't care. I need to diversify my customer base and enter an adjacent market. I need to know what content to create. I need to create thought leadership content, be seen as a leader in my market, and so on. Great problems to try to solve, yet not one of these has said with AI. And I really want to make that clear because so many people, whether they realize it or not, are trying to solve these problems with AI without fully defining them. Operations, I need to know what's going on. I don't even know what's going on and what the state of my marketing is. And my favorite, which is a problem that we solve, I can't use my data to make decisions. AI might be a solution there, but it's likely going to start with things like data governance and data quality and ownership and infrastructure. Like, you'll get to the AI eventually, but if you don't solve that problem, new tech doesn't solve old problems. And lastly, finance. I know my company is underperforming, but I don't know how to fix it. Slapping AI on top of that, definitely not going to fix it. I need to cut costs. I'm paying too much for too many things. AI costs money. You have to be able to make that investment. And if you're already spending in places or looking to make cuts, introducing a new tool on top of that is not going to help anything. Again, I know I sound really negative. I don't mean to be. I'm a realist. Once you know your purpose, once you know the problem you're trying to solve, this is where you really get into who is involved. I have here internal and external because all too often we're focused either on our team or either on our customers, but never really both at once. Both sides of the coin have to be aligned in how you're going to be using AI. Your customers are going to benefit from it in one way or another. Your teams are going to be the ones responsible for doing it. Both sides have to be involved in the conversation. Even if you don't have access to your customers right away, you can use AI. You can build an ideal customer profile. You can use that as a proxy for your customers to make sure that their voice is involved in this conversation. So how do we do that? I have tens of thousands of people in my company. How can I possibly figure out what every single person needs? Before we get into that solution, please raise your hand if you have ever been personally victimized by Google Analytics 4. So, yeah. This, I like to use the word masterclass. This is a masterclass in how the people were not asked about what they need, the audience specifically. Nobody asked for this. Universal Analytics was fine. We'd been using it for a very long time. We were very comfortable with it. We had years and years of data. We could do our year-over-year matching. We could do our attribution. People were building courses around it, careers around it. And then this happened. And they said, we don't care what you want. You have to use Google Ads. We're going to change definitions. You can't do attribution the way you used to. You can't do year-over-year because we've changed just enough to be annoying that it's two different data sets. They did not talk to the people, and this is what happens. Do not be like this. In order to talk to people, in order to get what the people need, I highly recommend user stories. If you're not familiar, user stories are borrowed from software development, specifically Agile, where I lived for a very long time. A user story is a simple 3-part sentence. As a persona, I want to, so that. The persona being your audience, the want to being your action, the so that being your outcome. If you want to get really fancy with it, it does very nicely map back to the 5 Ps. Persona being the person, want to being the process and platform, and so that being the performance and the purpose. Definitely by design. A user story is a very quick and easy way to suss out what somebody needs or what they don't need. If you've ever talked to a stakeholder and you said, what do you want me to create? And they've just said, well, go do it, and then we'll figure it out after. Or they don't really give you direction, and then you spend a lot of time building something, and they're like, that's not what I wanted. A user story can help shortcut that conversation. So this is what it could look like. If you don't have access to people, you can write them on their behalf and then give the user stories to them to react to. As a CEO, I want to make the workload more efficient so that we can scale our client offerings. Great problem to solve. As a marketing manager, I want to create repeatable processes so the workload is more efficient. And then don't forget about the client. As the client, I want to increase the workload under my contract so that I can get more value. These are very simple statements, but they tell you a lot of information. AI is in there. AI can help you with this. But until you define these things, you can't measure it. You don't know that this is actually what people need. Somebody might throw you a curveball that has nothing to do with AI, and you need to be able to address that to gain their trust, to then be like, okay, and now that we've addressed that problem, now let's see what else is available where AI can fit in. So use user stories. We use them a lot. We use them all the time when we're coming up with new ideas. How would people use this? What is the user story for this? What would our customers say about this? What would our clients say about this? What do I, as the end user, need in this situation? I highly recommend them. And they're simple sentences. Now that you know the purpose, now that you know the people, this is the big shebang, the burrito, the meat and potatoes. I'm kind of hungry. How are we doing the tasks today? This is the part that people like to skip over because, aside from me, people don't like to do documentation. I love it. I love the consistency. I love the predictability about it. I love being able to follow a list. And as I'm describing these things, this is how you grow and scale. You have to know what's happening today in order to get to the tomorrow. But it doesn't have to be a big, painful thing. And you can use AI to do it. But in order to get to a larger, broader audience of how we're using AI, you have to know what's happening today in order to get there. I highly recommend, again, totally 100% biased, to use the Trust Insights TRIPS framework. TRIPS stands for time, repetition, importance, pleasantness, and sufficient data. How long does it take? How often are you doing the task? How critical is the task? Do you enjoy the task? Because as we're talking with people, that's important to know. And do you have enough information and data for the task? When I was talking with the executive director of Bay Path Humane Society, she was going through all of these different things that she wanted to do. She had all these ideas, all these great things that she's tried and experimented and, on her own in isolation. and then wanted to bring it to the rest of the team. And I was like, cool, we can do that, but first, let's try to figure out what's going on. So I had her go through this TRIPS exercise. She talked to the team to find out what they are doing on the day-to-day so she could get more of a sense of what's happening. And for them, what they said was very different from what she thought they were going to need. One of the biggest needs being adopter training plans based on dog profiles. Every single dog in the shelter that gets adopted out gets one of these, and there's a lot of dogs. They go through a few dozen every single month getting adopted out, going into foster, and every single one of these dogs needs a training plan. And every adopter is at a different level. You have beginners, you have experienced, you have medical needs, whatever the thing is. All of that information was being done manually. It was being written from scratch every single time. That's a great use case for using AI that the team will see the value in immediately because it addresses their needs and allows them to go down the rest of the list. Foster profile summaries, adopter application summaries, adoption disclosures, adoption bio updates, RFP summaries, should we be applying for these grants, things that she hadn't thought about because she was very focused on what was bright and shiny, exciting right in front of her. So we went through this, we got our priority list, but we're not done. This is not good enough to get started, unfortunately. You have to build your standard operating procedures. There is no getting around it. You can use AI to do it. You can't get around this. Very similar to the same arguments I used to have with my developers. They wanted to skip requirements. Like, we know what we're building. We already know. They want this, they want that. But then it would get to the QA team, and the QA team would say, what am I testing? What's the plan? What does this look like? That documentation is going to be your key to success for people to understand, here's where I fit in. Here's what I'm doing. This is what my process looks like. One of the first conversations I had when I started working at a PR agency with the marketing team was, what are your standard operating procedures? And they looked at me like I had 6 heads. Everybody was doing something a different way. We changed that. That was my first order of business, was to build those standard operating procedures. And we were able to grow the team from 3 people to from about $500,000 in revenue to 11 people and $3 million in revenue because we built those SOPs and people started doing things in a repeatable, scalable way. At the time, AI wasn't an option, but had we had access to AI, we would have done even more because we would have known exactly where it fits in. Okay, now we get to choose the tools. Now we know the problems we're solving. Now we know the people. Now we know the processes. We get to choose a tool. Go ahead, pick one, anyone. This is why we want to be so diligent and thoughtful about those upfront pieces. This is great. We have no shortage of options. But every single one of these options comes with money, resources, investment, trying and failing. Maybe things are wasted, we don't know, unless we have that plan. This is only going to get bigger. This is going to become, this is unreadable now. This is going to become even more unreadable. I give the team who builds this a lot of credit because this would be like my OCD nightmare. Do your user stories. Do the TRIPS exercise, and you will be able to more quickly get to a platform solution. You will be able to narrow down and say, okay, now I know my top 3. I know the things I need to solve. I know the needs of the people. Let me now pick some platforms that are going to solve their problems. It might not be perfect, but it's closer to what we need versus, oh, it's just a shot in the dark. I found this really cool tool, and now everybody has to use it. And don't forget about performance. You have to measure. What is your measure of success? If you are going through this big, painful process of changing your culture, integrating AI, what's it for? What are the things that matter? What is your measure of success? It doesn't have to be numbers on a spreadsheet. It could be as simple as people are happier. People want to show up. They're motivated. But it has to be what's important to you. What is important to your organization and your culture? Go back through the 5P framework. It doesn't have to be this months long, sit in the meetings, we all have to define the 5 Ps. I'm not giving you this framework to give you more work. When I was talking with the executive director of Baypath, I used it as a mental checklist to keep the conversation focused. As she was telling me, I want to do this, my first thought was, okay, what is the problem she's trying to solve? Who's involved? How do they do it? What are the tools? How does she measure? And for me, because it's my day-to-day, I live and breathe it, I can go through that quickly, but it can be as simple as a checklist. If somebody brings you this really cool AI tool that does, a variety of different things and makes you coffee, ask them, okay, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Who are the people? What is the process involved, and so on and so forth. It doesn't have to be big and unwieldy and just like, it's one more thing for me to do. It doesn't have to fall into that 77% of people getting one more thing to do. When I talked about the client who wanted to win an innovation award, this is the process we're going through with them now. He was not happy. My point of contact, he was not happy because he wanted to move faster. But we were able to talk to him and talk him off that ledge to say, but this is how we get there. And so now we're doing the user stories. Now we're doing the TRIPS framework, and we're starting to learn a lot about what people are actually doing in their day-to-day, and we're pointing out to him, here are the quick wins. Here's how you can start using AI today, and then here's like the longer-term strategy of where we want to get the enterprise organization to. But until we did that exercise, everybody was just kind of rolling their eyes at him and saying, innovation awards, that's just not going to happen. I don't have time to do AI. I don't have time for this thing. I promise you, putting the people first is going to make you successful. Okay, so I did the 5 Ps. What's next? What do I do? Go back through this checklist that our friends at MAICON put together and make sure you're addressing the big barriers, education and training. The 5 Ps is not enough for a true integration. You need education and training. There needs to be a communication plan. What does this look like? What happens if we decide to change course? We have to have a strategy. It doesn't have to be a fully baked into your entire organization strategy. It can just be, hey, this is what we're going to do and why, and so on and so forth. Address these things in addition to doing the 5 Ps. Because AI integration is a marathon and not a sprint, unfortunately. I saw this quote recently from Jesse Cole, the owner of the Savannah Bananas. If you're not familiar, Savannah Bananas are a baseball team out of Savannah, Georgia, that have revolutionized and innovated the entertainment portion of baseball. Because baseball, great game, America's pastime, very dry and dull. He wanted to bring people back into it and give them what they needed. He wanted to say, what do you need? What do you want to see? We want to see the game of baseball And so what they did was they started trying these experiments to meet people where they were, to meet their audience where they were. And the thing that stuck with me that he said is, if we are not failing, we're not trying big enough things. So I know I'm talking through very pragmatic, very, get your people involved, but give them the chance to try and fail. Give them the opportunity to be a part of the bigger picture as a whole. Don't just leave it to leadership to say, this is what we're going to do and here's why, but let your people try and fail. Give them the opportunity to bring you solutions. Because if we're not failing, we're not trying big enough things. And if nothing else, use the 5 Ps as a checklist. It doesn't have to be big and in-depth. Just use it and say, what's my purpose? Who are the people? Do we have a well-defined process? If not, start there. And then evaluate your platforms and measure your performance. And the 6th, an unsung hero, is have patience. People are tricky. We're complicated. We're not predictable as much as we like to think we are. You have to have patience. You have to have patience with people. You have to have patience with the process. And I will stop alliterating at you. Thank you.